Is there a strategy that'll help you grow your company faster? CEO Sales Strategies is an investigative business podcast for entrepreneurial people who never stop asking questions. Highly acclaimed sales revenue growth expert Doug C. Brown interviews CEOs, business owners, and professionals who serve them to uncover and share actionable tips and methods behind their bulletproof sales strategies. Topics covered on the show include their failures, struggles, secrets, and processes that help them succeed in selling millions to billions of dollars of their products and services, all with the sole aim of helping you grow your business. If you are eager to know the most effective sales secrets from the A players of the game, then the CEO Sales Strategies podcast is certainly the place to be.
Hey everyone, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategy Podcast, bringing you another great guest. His name is Mr. Alex Malebranche, and he owns a company called PlaneAhead. It's a really cool concept about how you can take travel on airlines, domestic airlines in the United States, and have protection on your cost of your ticket. So in other words, how it works is, you book something, let's say it's 60 days, earlier, and the price drops over time. Well, you'll get a credit back on that if you are part of that PlaneAhead network. So we're talking a lot about profitability. We're also talking about how do you move from a employee state of mind to the entrepreneurial state of mind, because a lot of times entrepreneurs, even if they're existing and they're doing well, they kind of forget about what it's supposed to be about in the beginning. And they sort of get their business in a rut and they're kind of stuck and they're really not sure what to do. And they're working in the business and they're not stepped out of it to look back at what was the beginning supposed to be like. Maybe it was that in the beginning and then what it came to be. And a lot of times they're not that happy. I've talked with several people who have very successful companies, but they're not happy in the business itself because the business has them. They don't have the business. Right. So we're going to talk about those factors. So, get your pen out, get your pencil out, get your digital notepad out, and let's go to the interview with Alex right now. Alex, welcome to the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast, and thanks for being here.
No, it's a pleasure to be on. I appreciate you having me.
So I wanted to focus on a couple of things today on this. We certainly want to talk about profitability, and especially how it relates to sales, because I know you were a sales rep for, I think it was Plume Wi-Fi and AWS. Is that correct?
So at Plume, I did a little bit something different, but at AWS, I was in territory and enterprise sales.
Okay, so you're the guy when I bought my AWS account that when everything all went crazy, then I had to spend hours on with AWS fixing it. You're the guy who set it up, right?
Partly. I won't take full responsibility for it, but I did help get you set up. Yeah.
So, and then you made the break to entrepreneurship forward. So I'd love to talk about what is that transition point, because a lot of entrepreneurs, even though they're seasoned, we have people here, they have $500 million companies, people who listen. We have a lot of entrepreneurs as well who are just kind of going from point A to point B, or they're at point B trying to get to point C. And they're kind of making mistakes that when they were starting their company out, they had to pay attention to, but now they don't have to so much. Yeah. So, but they still should. And that's what gets them in trouble. And inevitably when they call me, they're like, I'm doing X, Y, Z. And I'm like, well, what happened to the letter before X? And they go, oh, I forgot about that. Yeah. And that's what kind of gets them stuck. So I want to talk about that in that context. And I want to talk about it in the context of what does it take to actually take that transition, because a lot of people also listening, entrepreneurship is really kind of taken off. And then I like to tie in the whole profitability side. So what got you from salesperson, which, corporate sales executive, which is an entrepreneurial role in itself, but what got you finally to make the break from point A to point B?
Yeah, so it was actually serendipitous, I'd say. So I'd always wanted to be an entrepreneur in my lifetime, but for me, it was more important for me to be a family man. And to many entrepreneurs out there, sometimes those things work against each other. So When you're an inventor or kind of an ideas all the time, you kind of take time and money and effort away from what you would hope to be a family. And so I had always said to myself, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I want to make sure that if being an entrepreneur is in my kind of future, like it just kind of comes to me. I want it to be very natural. I don't want to chase after things, right? And so this idea kind of came when I was actually on paternity leave. I was trying to make a change myself, realized I couldn't, looked for a company that did something similar. And I'm sure we'll go into my company a little bit later, and figured out, okay, well, there's a gap here. And so for me, the transition began because of that kind of promise I made to myself. Okay, now that time has come, right? And so it was my opportunity to kind of lean into what I believe to be a passion of mine. And so I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, when you're talking about entrepreneurs that have done it 2, 3, 4, 5 times, right? At some point, they're kind of running on autopilot. Like they love it, they know it, and so they do it. And you spoke to kind of skipping steps along the way, right? When you do it the second or third time, you might skip some steps because you feel like you've done it before. You're right. Like sometimes that works for some people, but I think for the majority of people, it's always about the root of why you became an entrepreneur to start, which is you're passionate about this thing. And with that passion comes, you're researching, you're trying to understand it more, you're talking to customers, you are a customer, right? And so I think that is really important when you're trying to make the decision to make the transition, right? Are you going to be just as committed this time as you were the very first time? I'm a sports guy, and so I liken it to kind of when you hear like the Ben Roethlisbergers or Brett Favre, when they're kind of contemplating retirement, they find themselves thinking about retirement the moment they get into training camp, and they think to themselves, man, I'm not into this as much as I was before, right? That's kind of what I think about it as. So for me, it's just kind of giving yourself that gut check is, are you as passionate about what you're doing, the subject matter, not the outcomes, not the potential money, but the subject matter? Are you passionate about it this time as you were the first time? And that's going to help you a lot with making sure that you're taking the right steps at the very beginning.
I think that's really critical in any business. And a lot, I remember Steve Jobs saying when he was alive, if I have too many days that I'm asking myself, do I really like this anymore? He said, it's time to make a change. And I think what you are saying is extremely important for people to remember, because a lot of times people will get into business and they'll even have success in business, but then the business kind of like, it's not really what I wanted it to be, right? It starts to wane the passion in that process. And that translates directly into the ability to sell. Even if the company's growing, they're losing money because they're not actually in the game, right? It's kind of going through the motions. And so what I heard you say was you started with your values first, and those values were family first. And you knew you're like, okay, I'm going to have a life like this. Then I'm going to build my business around that. So my business supports my life versus my life supporting my business. Did I get that correct?
Yeah, I think that's well said.
So that is so important. That's part of the reason people lose the passion for what they're doing in business, because the business now has them. They don't have a business. Mm-hmm. And so, I was talking to a gentleman. He cut his company back eventually. He was doing $200 million. He cut his company back to $50 million. And he said he's never been happier than he's ever been.
Yeah.
Right. So
it allows you to really focus on, again, the thing that made you start in the first place. You can get so wrapped up in a lot of other things. Entrepreneurship is very, very taxing and very, very sometimes convoluted and very complex. And you start to take on a lot of other responsibilities, a lot of other people's money, and you can very easily lose kind of the genesis to why you started. So that does not surprise me, that story.
So a lot of times with entrepreneurs, and I agree with that if they're kind of getting out there, and there are people listening right now going, that's me, there are people out there that are saying that. And I would challenge them based on what you said, go back and reassess. What do you want your life to be like? And then adjust your business around it, because it's not so much the money we make as in terms of revenue. It's how do you have your lifestyle and what profitability you have around that lifestyle? And that was one of the things you and I originally, when we first spoke, not on this show, but in our previous conversation about, okay, how do you make sales profitable and how do you really live a decent life in doing that? So let me pull you back to AWS for a second. Then I want to go back to your company because I love the concept of what you pulled together. When I saw it and I was like, oh my God. And by the way, folks, there's a waiting list right now. So sign up for the waiting list. We're going to tell you how to do it. But even myself, I want on the list, right? I want to get into this thing. So, and we'll tell people what that is in a moment. But let's go back to AWS, like the days you're selling enterprise accounts. A lot of people are trying to figure out, how do I sell an enterprise account? And how do I make it profitably from the sales standpoint? Because smaller companies or mid-sized companies, they're spending a lot of money getting into these enterprise accounts.
Sure.
And sometimes when they look at it, they go, oh my God, it took me 2 years to get this thing and my profitability is less than if I had have done, 10 medium-sized accounts in the same time.
Yeah.
So how did you guys do it at AWS? Did you have like a profit model or how did it go?
So it's very interesting. And I think AWS or Amazon is very unique in this way, just like in many other ways, which is probably what makes them Amazon, right? The sales motion, the idea of selling is a little bit different than kind of maybe a classic 8-year account executive role. We were looking for opportunities within accounts that wanted to do business with us already. So when you think of sales, a lot of people, and this is actually how my career started, you think of cold calling, like, hey, I've got this thing. Do you want to use it? Do we think this, it brings this A, B, and C value? A lot of times with AWS in particular, people call us and say, hey, we want AWS. So, okay, great. So that part of the sales motion is done. Now the sales motion for us is more, now that you're using us, we are, growing and have these many different services. It's on us to know enough about your business to be proactive in saying, hey, of these 70 services that AWS has, and now it's actually probably like 150, of these 150 services that AWS has, with your specific industry, with your specific business, these services are going to be the most impactful for you. So it's different in kind of a classic sales motion, but it's very much in the mindset of being an entrepreneur. You've got to know the business and understand and proactively kind of identify where there's an opportunity for us to help them do better in their business. And by selling them, quote unquote, another service or more services that are going to help them do better in business, their business grows and therefore their spend on us grows, as opposed to, hey, you pay us $30,000 and then that is our profit, right? It's more of a long-term mode of thinking, because ideally, like, we're actually trying to save the company money, right? Hey, with this service, yes, you're going to pay a little bit, but over time, it's going to save you money, save you effort, and that's the value. And so kind of when I first got into AWS, it was very much like one of my KPIs or things to kind of focus on is how can we help the customer save money, which would in turn keep a long-term relationship and make them happy, right? So a little bit inverse of kind of the typical sales strategy, but I think it's definitely applicable in a lot of ways, because I think as we move forward in business, it's as much about how we bring value and maybe cutting costs and giving the customers an opportunity to buy into the idea of cutting costs, right? And so a little bit different, but it was definitely a unique experience for me. And as far as selling into enterprise, anybody that has sold into enterprise knows one of the major things to consider is kind of the hierarchy or the organizational structure, right? Office politics. Who do you have inside of the company that is your champion? Who are the people that require a little bit more work as far as what you're selling? And so just kind of being able to navigate those personalities and how those things work, again, applicable to a lot of different things as well.
We're speaking with Alex Malebranche. And Alex, what's the name of your company? I'll let you announce it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the company is called PlaneAhead. So like an airplane, PlaneAhead. Started about 18 months ago. I'm super excited that I was able to identify something that I felt like people would need. Again, kind of to that idea of finding a solution that helps people save money. So, we're selling the idea of a membership and you pay us money, but ultimately I hope to save you money, more money than you end up paying PlaneAhead, which is the idea. So,
because I know you as a long-term thinker, I mean, in our conversations, and, if we take Amazon and we replicate this and we say, just what you said, it's a little inverse of what we normally do in sales, but but it's Amazon. I mean, they're not a tiny little company, right? So they've been thinking long term. I've never spoken with Jeff Bezos, but I imagine if I had talked with him or had the opportunity to talk with him, I know in the beginning they were losing money consistently and they kept bringing investment money because he was always thinking long term, or it appeared to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we're in a sales process and we're thinking long term, in your case, you were thinking cross sells throughout the whole process. What do we sell more? Now, maybe we're saving some money for the client. Maybe our margins are even a little less than they were on the first initial sale, but we're picking up a multitude of services on the back end. And it goes back to like McDonald's. I mean, love them a lot, like them or hate them. I mean, they're a successful company, and they started the bundling, right, with the Happy Meal. Amazon sort of bundling the process together over time, and therefore gaining long-term client value, which I can only imagine increases stock share like crazy, to take a look at it. And I see you doing the same with your company, because you built your company. You started, you got to a place where it's running, and then you're like, let's look long term. Let's get some investor money into the process and let's grow this company out. I love the concept. Would you tell people about what PlaneAhead is all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So PlaneAhead is a travel tech software where, as a member of PlaneAhead, it will actually track and then change your plane tickets after you've already purchased them and before you've taken the flight. So what that actually means is, if you're planning ahead to, fly and go see family in August and you bought the ticket today, let's say that ticket was $500. Well, between today when you bought it and eventually when you actually take off, that price continues to fluctuate up, down, whether it's because of international conflict, gas prices, whatever the case may be, continues to go up and down. A lot of people try and play the game of, all right, is this the best time to buy? I'm going to keep on waiting for it. And then they actually make the purchase. Well, after you make the purchase, people typically don't go back and check on it. Well, it continues to go up and down. Well, what we do is, anytime it goes down after you've already made the purchase, we'll actually, on your behalf, go to the airlines and say, hey, there's a credit that needs to be given, and then you'll be allotted a credit back from the airline. And so if you bought your ticket on American Airlines one day and it was $500, and next month it goes down to $400, the same exact flight, we're not changing, from morning to night or anything like that. Just so happens that same flight goes down $100. Well, American Airlines would give you a $100 credit back. And so what a lot of people don't know is that they will actually do that for you, but of course they won't they won't market to you that they will do that. So it's one of those things where it allows you to take advantage of something that's already in place on behalf of the airlines, but also it enables you to continue to travel, right? We're in times where some people are getting a little stir crazy at home. We're wanting to kind of use our time that is remote working to go see more parts of the country, more parts of the world. And now we're able to do that by kind of giving customers more airline credits for the money that they bought. So it's kind of the new way of guaranteeing the lowest price.
So they put it back in a travel bank, basically.
Absolutely, yeah. So every airline is slightly different, but yes, you don't get cash back, right? Because it's a non-refundable ticket. What they do is issue you a travel credit. So whether it be Alaska, United, Delta, they'll issue you a travel credit, and the next time you want to go, book a trip, you'll use that travel credit and use that.
So for all you road warriors out there, or all you soon-to-be road warriors, this is an awesome concept, because I didn't fly as much as others, Alex, but sometimes I'd be on 30 to 50 flights a year.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I never, ever checked the price of the ticket after I already purchased it. I would do exactly what you said. I would be like, okay, wait a minute, I've got it down. If I get it to like 15 days ahead, or on a certain day, I would notice the airlines would change the prices here and there, and then I'd try to buy it, or sometimes even last minute. I wait till last minute, and then bam, I get a decent rate. But you're gambling at that point. So basically, what you've done is you've taken out the gamble of the whole situation, which is like, just buy your ticket. If it drops down before there, bam, you're going to get a bank credit or a check back or something like that, based on the fact that they're in your membership club, if you will.
Absolutely. And a lot of customers will ask when I explain this, okay, well, if it changes more than once, do you keep getting credits? And the answer is yes, right? We had a customer that gave us their Thanksgiving plans last May, so about 6 months in advance, and it went down 9 times. We get 9 separate credits. So a credit for $16, a credit for $8, a credit for $38, a credit for $4, right? Continues and it adds and adds, and then again, like you said, when you're ready to travel the next time, use all those credits and go somewhere else. So no need to gamble. It just continues to rack up for you.
So does it matter where somebody flies in the world? I mean, can they fly to Europe or Australia, or is it?
Yeah, great question. So a lot of the airlines that are US based have actually transitioned to rules that allow this to happen. So if you're traveling to Europe on a US carrier, for instance, like on United, yes, you can do that. A lot of the international carriers have not made the transition with their rules to allow for this to happen. So if you're traveling from the US to Dubai on Emirates, it's less likely that you'll be able to take advantage of our program yet, because of course, everything is continuing to change, especially in the travel space. But right now, most major US carriers, no matter where you're traveling to, if it's on a US carrier, you'll be able to take advantage.
So, because I'm curious and I'm pumping you full of information here. So if I start with a US based carrier that's in an alliance like Star Alliance or whatever, because I remember one time I went from a US carrier and then their flight got grounded due to, issues, and they put me on another alliance member and they took me to Germany at that point. Mm-hmm. So is it still covered because I bought a US ticket?
So that's a really great question. The ticket has to, whenever the change is made, and it gets a little hairy when airlines actually make the change for you, right? When they cancel a flight for whatever reason, call it, lack of resources right now, there's a staff shortage. If you were on United and they transfer you to Lufthansa because that's the only one they've got left, right? Now it's no longer eligible for that sort of, and again, United is in control of, as an example, United is in control of that change, right? And so they've given you over to Lufthansa, and now you're not able to get that same sort of benefit. But the airline rules there are a lot of hidden gems within the airline rules. So for changes like that, there can be an opportunity for you to reap some sort of benefit or incentive because of that change. I would implore people to, if they've got the time, to take a look at how many things are within the airline rules that are kind of in your favor. But again, they make them difficult to get through for a reason.
Absolutely, it's kind of like telecommunications companies. They have rules to protect you, but or credit card companies. I guess the last question would be, what does a membership cost?
Yeah, so a membership cost depends on how many people are on the membership. So for a single membership, $99, all the way up to a family membership, which covers 4 people, $149, and that's for a year. And so to give a frame of reference, on average right now, each credit change is $176. So on average, people will get their money plus more back in a credit change. Of course, that's on average, right? So not every ticket gets changed. Right now, we're seeing about 30% of the tickets that we have kind of purview of actually get a change, but we've gotten someone a credit of up to $816 once before on one trip. So there are definitely opportunities there, especially as the world and travel is very volatile, and it creates opportunity for people to take advantage.
You heard it here, folks. Alex said $176 minimum per ticket. No, I'm just kidding, Alex. We can't. So the reality is this is a direct savings. So let's go back to business travel, for example. When we can save money in any capacity and we're not affecting the overall outcome performance, that's a key, guys and gals listening, right? It is, if we can reduce our cost but still have the effectiveness and the efficiency that we want, that translates into a direct increase in profitability in any situation within any company. So travel is one of those things. I mean, there are some companies that spend, 8-9 figures sometimes annually, or maybe even more, some of them, on actually employee travel. So if you're doing employee travel and you can save this money, you can bank it toward the bottom line profitability, which increases the overall profitability. And if you're a publicly traded company, helps with your stock price, right? It helps, all kinds of things. Also lets you do initiatives in a company that maybe you couldn't do. Maybe you take that kind of money that you're saving on plane fare and you now put it into some type of employee fund that you never thought of, or whatever, because the money is either going to go to the airlines or it's going to go back into your credit account of some sort. So I have this conversation so many times with entrepreneurs and people who own businesses, and they'll go, "Oh, I got a $17 million company." I'll go, "Okay, great. What's your profitability?" "Oh, I got a $17 million company." "Yeah, what's your profitability?" "Well, I got a $17 million. Yeah, how much money do you make?" "Well, we're losing $300,000 a year." Right. So it's kind of like, if somebody's going to start, like you made the switch and you moved and you're going in game and you're building your life side out. Do you look at revenue or do you look at profitability? Or your investors look at revenue or do they look at profitability? Which one's the more important, or are they both equally important?
I think startups are unique in that at a certain scale, neither of those things matter. And I think I'm at that scale right now. We're really trying to prove out the hunger for something like this and the viability of something like this. I think we're proving out whether this is something that will be a help to businesses and airlines, or is it going to be seen as more of a threat? This is definitely more of a testing phase for us. And thankfully, a lot of the tests, that we've been doing are all positive, right? It's a lot of people, for instance, might think, okay, well, the airlines are going to find out and they're not going to like it. Well, it helps airlines, right? It has people book direct. And then, if you get $70, Doug, on United Airlines, well, the next time you fly, you're going to fly United and you'll buy a $300 ticket, save $70, which you're happy about, but then you spent another $230, right? So yep. I think it's doing a lot of those things that's really our focus right now. I think eventually we'll kind of shift over to what the profit is for us. And I think when you're talking a tech company, right, those things can be a little bit more complex to really realize, right? You could be losing money for 5 years before you actually start making money.
Sure.
So again, it's really about focusing on what value we're bringing to our customers and the value that we're bringing to the travel ecosystem, in my opinion, when it comes to an offering like this, because the airplanes is just, a small part of it, right? When people start flying, now we're talking about tourism around the world. We're talking about hotels and rental cars and all of these industries that in the last few years have been taking a major hit. Right now, we're starting to increase the economy of all of those different things. And so there's a larger outcome and thing that we're focused on when it comes to this industry, or at least that I'm focused on with this industry. And so I'd say we're uniquely for a startup right now, neither sales nor profitability are of my top concerns, but there are definitely things that as we grow, right, as you spoke to, those margins are important for us to realize how much effort we're putting into a company or a customer, and can we put in less effort but still get the same amount of performance or the same amount of value for our customer so they continue to use us year over year.
I think that's a really good way of looking at it. You got long-term thinking going on, right? So maybe the theme of this particular podcast should be long-term thinking and growth, and how that leads to ultimate profitability for companies. Alex, if people want to get on the waiting list, how do they do it?
Yeah, so planeahead.co.co. When you go on our landing page, you'll see a bunch of buttons in the top and the bottom all around that say join our waitlist. So it doesn't cost any money to join the waitlist. It's just put down some of your information. And as we start to open up more spots with some of the scale that we're able to open up, we'll get you in there. We're trying to serve as many people as much as possible. And my goal is to see people around the world. It's not to do anything but that. The world is a beautiful thing. I started traveling when I was younger, joined the Army, got to see a lot of the world. Seeing the world opens people's minds, creates empathy, creates for better people, human beings, and greater experiences. And so that's my overall goal. So planeahead.co. And you'll also start to see more about our waitlist because it's fairly new on our Instagram, on our LinkedIn, anywhere you can find us. So PlaneAhead.
Alex, thanks for being here. I agree with you. Nothing will broaden your horizons like traveling to other parts of the world and understanding how people are people there too, especially us as Americans. That's not a dig at America, folks, so don't send me hate mail. Alex is a veteran of the United States Army. I am too. We love the country, but nothing will broaden your horizons like going out and being in other cultures and understand that how they deal with life is very similar to how we deal with life as well. So
absolutely.
Alex, thanks for being here again. I really appreciate you being here on the CEO Sales Strategies podcast.
Doug, a blessing to be here. Thank you for having me.
You are welcome, sir. Okay, so if you want to save some money on your airfare, well, now you know how to do it. Go to Alex's company. They'll all be in the show notes right below. And, think about long-term in your business, right? We talked about how to think long-term. So, when you look at Amazon, you look at any really big company, it took time for them to get there. And they were constantly thinking down the line, most of them. Yeah, there's that few exceptions where, hey, you know what? Business grew without them. But most people are thinking long-term. And, if you're starting up as an entrepreneur and you're listening to this, or you're a seasoned entrepreneur and your business is kind of out from underneath you, let's talk about long-term. What do you want to do long-term? Build your life first, build the business around it. So check it out on the PlaneAhead. Go to the waiting list if you want to be on that. They're going to be opening it up as soon as they can. And start saving some money, because that directly goes to the profitability of your business and your life, so you can reallocate those funds to other needed resources. So that's it. If you desire a specific subject matter on this podcast, as always, reach out to us. Let us know what it is. We'll source the talent. We'll get that subject matter for you. If you like this podcast, which I'm assuming you do, please go up and subscribe to it if you haven't already subscribed, and please give it a glowing review if you feel it deserves so. Really appreciate you being here. If you need any help with your business on, hiring, managing, recruiting, or retaining top talent, or how to get your sales team or yourself into the top 1% of your sales in your industry globally, reach out to us. You can reach out to me at Doug at ceosalesstrategies.com, or just Doug Brown 1234. That's my LinkedIn or company phone number, 603-595-0303. So go out there, sell something, sell a lot of it, sell it profitably, make a lot of money, have a great day and a great life. Till next time, this is Doug Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. To your success.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. What is something that you learned that you could act on today? Don't forget to schedule it now, or it may never get forward momentum. If you find our content valuable, please leave a favorable review and let us know what you liked. Please also share this with others if the content will help them. For our show notes, other episodes, and more interesting content and resources, please visit ceosalesstrategiespodcast.com. See you soon, and to your continued success.